Now, Porsches, they have always confused me, not because the design has been almost similar for the last 60 years, but because their variants are too many. Now, I can always walk into a dealership and understand what is what, but then because I have a cool job, I'm here in Germany at a test track in Dusseldorf to drive a lot of Porsches, all the way from the entry-level mid-engine Boxster and Cayman to the rear-engined 911s. The test track had a high-speed oval, a handling track with chicanes and fast corners, and then there was the skid pad too, which in my view was large enough to accommodate a drift competition for trucks. But Porsche doesn't make any trucks, so what they brought to the test track instead was a Boxster GTS, a Cayman GTS, a Carrera 4S, a 911 Targa, a 911 Turbo, a 911 Turbo S, amongst others. Through the course of the day, I got behind the wheel of all these cars, but what I spent time with the most was the Cayman GTS. The GTS badge is quite an important one for Porsche and dates back to the Carrera GTS from the early 60s. This is the first time the Cayman is wearing this badge, and therefore it proudly announces it with a new body kit that comprises of new bumpers, larger air intakes, 20-inch rims, a new exhaust system, lot of blacked out accents, and the GTS stamping all around. The Cayman also uses brighter headlamps with dynamic adjustments, but as Porsche enthusiasts claim, a GTS shouldn't just look fast, but it also needs to go fast. This Cayman GTS, it's powered by the same 3.4 litre Boxer 6 engine that you get in India. This one, however, in the GTS guys, produces 340 PS of power and 380 Newton meters of torque. Now, of course, those are not really big figures, but then this car is so much fun, so much fun. It does 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds, but it's not about the acceleration, it's about how it gives you all that power. It goes to about 7,500 RPM, that's the red line, and it just wants to get there as quickly as possible. The Cayman GTS that I am driving comes spec'd with the 7-speed PDK gearbox, and it is one of the fastest dual clutch units around there. It's so smooth, it's so quick. Whether you're in automatic mode or you're controlling the gears all by yourself, it is super quick. The Cayman GTS isn't the best sounding Porsche around, but then you wouldn't complain either, because the sound coming from that Boxer 6, that whine of the Boxer 6 is beautiful. It doesn't give you any crackling sounds, it is quite smooth, but the whine itself, it just makes you push harder and harder, just wants you to gun for that red line again and again. The mid-engine configuration, that is what works magic for this car, because you feel as if that's the pivot point, that is what is holding you down to the road, and the rest of the car is built around it. The rest of the drama is happening around that pivot point. And that is what gives you that balanced feel when you're driving this car, when you're pushing it around corners, or even at high speeds when you're going on oval like this. It feels nice, balanced, agile. It just contributes to the whole aspect of fun in this car. Love it. Out on the German public roads, the Cayman feels a tad stiff, and you would need to be a little careful if you plan to drive one of these in India. But that superb exhaust note and those handling dynamics fix everything. This is an amazing toy, this Cayman GTS. It looks every bit a Porsche, and because it is mid-engine, it's also a very sweet handler. And because it is mid-engine again, it leaves you enough luggage room to be a good everyday sports car. Now, the Cayman already impressed us in this regard. The Cayman GTS just takes it forward. But then, if you're a hardcore Porsche enthusiast, then you would want something that's a rear engine and something that has 911 credentials. But something that can be better than a 911 Turbo. Say hello to the 911 GT3. That GT3 suffix tells you that it has something to do with the GT3 category of race cars. Allow me to fill in the rest.
Unlike the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars, which use the Metzger engine, this road-going GT3 uses the Carrera's direct injection naturally aspirated petrol power plant. Its capacity is boosted from 3.4 litre to 3.8 litre. It also gets bigger dams for swallowing large amounts of air, 2 cooling fans under the bonnet, and the fixed whale tail spoiler that gives the GT3 its visual distinction. If you look closely, the front bumper's design makes the GT3 look like she is pouting. Interesting, since I haven't seen many German women posing for selfies. But this car isn't just a pretty girl posing in fancy racing overalls. The roll cage and the racing buckets are a clear giveaway about its intentions, and the moment you switch on the ignition, the instrumentation displays a nice animation highlighting the GT3 silhouette. The engine is programmed to start with a loud metallic howl before it settles into a hollow sounding idle speed. Once you get going, you will notice that the exhaust note is the nastiest that Porsche has on offer. It makes you feel like a kid again, wanting to push the GT3 through its paces. The car may not have the gut-wrenching torque of the 911 Turbo, but the GT3 rewards you with a linear supply of power and torque that never feels inadequate. It revs faster than you can blink, and if you have enough guts to take the GT3 to its red line, the final 500 to 700 revs produce a shriek that can make your chest hair stand, and then you want to do it again and again. And if you still have more courage left, you might want to try out the launch control.
This is the Porsche 911 GT3. And why am I shouting? Because this is a one-of-a-kind car. This is nothing like what I've ever driven. This is certainly not the most powerful car that I've driven. This produces 475 PS of power from its 3.8 litre Boxer 6. But the way it delivers that power, the way it churns out all that power, wow, that is something.
The GT3 stiff suspension made me feel every joint and pebble on the road. And with racing seats, it wasn't too pleasant. But it was a very small price to pay for the kind of performance that this car offers. Porsche has also devised a 4-wheel steering system wherein at higher speeds, the rear wheels point in the same direction as the front wheels, therefore making the car more agile through the corner. At slower speeds though, the rear wheels point in the opposite direction to the front wheels to emulate the lesser turning radius of a short wheelbase car, thus making it easy to maneuver in tighter spaces. The rear wheel steering isn't noticeably visible. The real fun of a Porsche lies in its driving precision, and the GT3 achieves it to the fullest. It is not easy to reach the limits of this car because the limits are set high, very high. Yes, the 911 Turbo has immense pedigree which the GT3 can't match, but if buying the 911 Turbo would be the equivalent of securing a seat in a renowned institution, then driving a GT3 is as good as winning the Student of the Year award in that institution. That is how special it is. After being blown away by the mid and the rear engine Porsches on the track, we decided to drive out in a front engine car. We chose the Panamera GTS. With its 4.8 litre engine and its large yet sleek proportions, this sportier Panamera to me looks like a deadly rhino waiting for an opportunity to charge. We decided to go road tripping with it to Amsterdam. 350 kilometers didn't sound like much for the Panamera GTS, but the moment we left the Autobahn and entered Holland, low speed limits and slow moving traffic slowed us down instantly. After all those traffic jams, we have finally made it into Amsterdam. Quite frankly, it isn't the kind of city that I expected it to be. There is a lot of Victorian architecture, yes. There's a lot of modern architecture as well. But the roads seem to be really narrow. What I thought of Amsterdam was a city full of a party atmosphere all day long. Big roads and fancy cars. But it looked like ours was the only Porsche in town. So every time I'm out road tripping, I generally try to taste the local flavor. And since we are here in Amsterdam, there is something special that I want to taste. It's called something to do with pot.
Stammpot. Yeah, Stammpot. That's what it is called. And that is what I'm going to look for.
But our search for food had a bigger problem to be dealt with: parking space.
So wherever there are restaurants, I can't find any parking space at all. I can see some really nice restaurants there, but there's only place for cyclists. I don't know what they were thinking when they made these roads in Amsterdam. So we'll make it really narrow, and then 1/3 of it we'll allocate them for cyclists.
Fortunately, we didn't knock anyone over, but we had to leave the town centre and head to a place called Zaandam, where we finally found Stammpot. Not in a restaurant, but in a shopping mall. The dish is made up of mashed potatoes served with curry and meat. It tasted quite good, but a tad too bland for my taste. Frankly, the pain of driving through cyclists didn't seem worth it. In fact, driving in Amsterdam felt like a wrong idea. For the first time in the last 2 days, I felt frustrated to drive something as humongous as the Panamera. I'm sure the car was frustrated too. And so we decided to head back to Dusseldorf. It was back on the Autobahn, and this time I floored it. The V8 engine was finally breathing freely, and the 7-speed PDK was working so precisely that it felt like it was predicting my thoughts. I put the car into sports mode to unleash all of the 430 German horses. The scenery started moving faster, and the rearview mirror reflected the 4-piece spoiler as other cars were rapidly turning into specks. The view was amazing. In fact, that is what the Porsche Panamera GTS is made for. It demands wide open roads and likes to make its presence felt. And it's a foodie too, as it loves gobbling down those miles with authority, pace and balance, thus justifying its badge that stands for Gran Turismo Sport.